So let's get going with the program here. We have a nice surprise for you tonight. Maybe I won't tell you what it is, but it's going to be a good surprise. Tonight's program is on the recent VK0EK expedition to Heard Island. And that will be presented by Rick Holoch, KY6R. Rich has been providing support for the team from here in California while they were out on the island. He'll share his latest videos and photos with us as the team makes its way back home from the Braveheart. And once again, he will be providing you with a little bit of a surprise. Rich, are you here? Come on up. Hello, Rich. Oh, there he is. Good evening.
Woohoo! It's gonna get crazier.
Get over it.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. Really appreciate all the support for the Heard Island de-expedition. And basically, one thing that I put up on the screen right now is a list of all of our sponsors. We'd like to thank everyone. There are quite a few clubs that are represented here, and we thank you very, very much. Our fundraising campaign went very, very well. We did, quite well, and we're fully funded as the guys got on the boat, so that's a good news there. So what I want to do is I want to act as a bit of a proxy because they're on their way back, and yesterday they were just past the halfway point. And I don't know if you looked at VK0EK.org, you might have noticed that I was surmising that because I hadn't heard anything from them for days after they left Heard, that they were probably sequestered, kind of in their bunks with rough seas, and that's the case. They had the roughest seas. Just as of, I think, yesterday, the seas got calm, and then all of a sudden information started flowing, like an email and phone call and whatnot. I'd like to recognize a few people here for sure. I'd like to recognize the Diablo DXers, if you could stand at the table. These are the people who basically built DXA and all of the other technology that powered VK0EK. So it's like a big hand for them. And I'd also like to recognize Kay Schmieder, Bob Schmieder's wife and sister. So please stand.
Wait.
Now, without further ado, I'll get right into the presentation, and we'll have a little bit of surprise at about 03:30. I'm going to start out with a couple little videos just because I just think they're so good and you have to see it. So here's penguins on Heard Island. I love this video. I think Gavin did this video. These are a real, the team members told me that man's best friend on Heard Island are penguins, because they didn't do anything on Heard Island without a penguin coming around sort of watching them, and you'll see some slides about what I mean. They're really quite amazing. So here's the Heard Island penguins, very social, very interesting animal for sure.
Let's see if we can turn out lights.
Get over it. No, down 5. Oh, this is, yeah, I remember this video. This is great. I mean, are there any predators of penguins down there?
I see some of those seals.
Seals? Really? Oh, really? Again, I thought they were just after fish.
Well, sea lions.
Okay, sea lions, okay.
We're working on it.
Seals. Leopard seals.
Oh, that's crazy. But they live in each other's midst, I guess. So, seems like there's plenty of
Okay, I think
penguins.
they're trying to find the lights, so.
They've got so much video and photos according to those.
Okay, I'm going to play another video here. I hope you can see it, and I hope they get the lights. But anyway, this is the team raising the 160-meter vertical. It's about 70 feet, and I did find out it's a little bit top-loaded and a little bit base-loaded. So basically, they're using a falling derrick method, and this is in fast speed. So hopefully you can see this, but it's quite an interesting thing. We have an Ironman 160 top band DXer on the team, UT6UD, who has a lot of contest wins, and also Dave K3EL, both are avid top banders, and so they really have it together as far as getting this antenna up and running. Now, I'd actually like a quick question while they're raising the antenna. If you could stand, if you made honor roll by working VK0EK, I'd really like to see that. Anyone make honor roll with VK0EK? Well, please stand.
I know there's a couple guys that
Okay, now I'd like to see anyone who made top of the honor roll with VK0EK. Please stand. Got a lot of really nice, mail and support tickets saying thank you and that. So here's their antenna. Ah, there we go.
Better.
keep going. Down, 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 and down the drive. They need to turn down all these like here, leave the back.
See, actually, we meant to do that with a video, sort of a warm-up, right?
Yeah. Keep going.
Okay, now we'll start the slideshow here in just a second.
Is that mine? Oh, I guess it is. I was going to say, you want another one?
No, I don't want another one. I shouldn't even be eating this one. I'm supposed to be cycling 100 miles next week. So I gotta.
Okay, here we
Gotta
go.
get those carbs.
What?
get
PowerPoint
carbs?
isn't cooperating. It'll probably pop up sooner or later on this slow computer. But anyway, so basically
all the
this
damn
picture
podcasts,
is
I haven't been
the team as
upright.
they're arriving on Heard Island. They actually were treated to this beautiful picture on the left, and their landing party included the penguins. And introduced the expedition leader, Bob Schmieder, and Dr. Bob Schmieder. And basically, he has quite a resume, and you can find that online. But he basically was a graduate of Caltech and also Columbia University with honors. He was a nuclear physicist for 25 years and at Sandia Labs. And he actually, one thing that I didn't know about him that I learned because I was on the last voyage of a boat he owned the boat down below there, and that was the Cordell Explorer. And basically what he did for 20 years is take students out on the bay from, Oakland and Berkeley, and basically did that for 20 years to introduce them into the science on the bay. And I was very touched by that. I was on the last voyage of that boat. That boat was really interesting. It's an old salmon boat that was originally made in Coos Bay, and basically I was really touched that he spent all that time helping the local schools with sort of marine biology. So that was quite that was the thing that I think impressed me the most, was his giving on that. Okay, Cordell Expeditions, have had some de-expedition of the year. I've listed some of those here, and also have had other top 10 activations. A couple of these are coming back into the top 10. San Felix and Curray, and Cordell did the last activations there. Okay, myself, I'm not an expeditioner, and I'm not an expedition leader, and I don't play one on TV. I'm just a DXer, but I really love this, and I actually went to Bob a few years ago and said, could I be a pilot for your Heard Island expedition? And he put me to work on Clipperton, and then I got really involved with this expedition, so a lot more than I ever expected. I'm originally from New Jersey, New Jersey, Sussex County. Went to school in Pennsylvania. Been a ham since '73, but didn't get into DXing until 2001. And my family moved out here because my father was always in aerospace. He worked at Thiokol on the rocket engines for the surveyor that went to collect samples on the moon. And he came out here to work for Lockheed, and he and my twin brother worked on the space shuttle tiles, which every one was a different size and shape. My family's very much sort of aerospace oriented, and my father was down in the LA area all the time. Okay, this is the team, and basically you could find them on the website, but a finer group of people I've never worked, never had the pleasure of working with. I've been in IT and building data warehouses and databases for 35 years, and I can honestly say maybe twice in those 35 years I have been on a team that was as cohesive and friendly and just hardworking as the team that we have, both on the island and off the island. And we have team members all around the world, and we jokingly call ourselves the Diablo DXers. There is a bit of a reason for the Diablo DXer, and that is Bob and I and several other people, and all of the people who are in the support team can see Mount Diablo from our, pretty much our area. So that's where the name came from. We're a loose bunch of beer drinkers and DXers.
Here. Get over it.
So this is the Braveheart crew, and you've heard this before, and we're going to reiterate it again. In fact, Bob just called me the other day and just had to remind me. He didn't really have to remind me, but the Braveheart crew really becomes part of your de-expedition. And I mean, they are absolutely critical to the success of a de-expedition. They are part of the team. They're not some other group. They're very hardworking and very high-spirited, very high energy. And I've only ever heard the best about these people, and they're just fantastic. So here's man's best friend, the penguin, looking at one of the final days when an SVDA had been basically flooded, and they were still on the air making QSOs. And the penguins were trying to help, I guess, but they certainly were curious. The statistics on VK0EK were similar to, say, K5P, quite similar. I mean, we're hundreds of QSOs, difference in the total. There was certainly a different distribution between which continents, oh, here we go. Here comes a call. Let's see. Put him on speaker. Who is this? Oh, hello. Who's this?
Yeah. Rick?
Oh, hey, Bob. Hi, Bob. KK6EK on the Braveheart.
Okay, dude, can you hear me, Rick?
Yes, we hear you quite well, and we're all looking forward to hearing how things are going on the Braveheart.
Okay, very good. Hear myself coming back. I heard I came to Visalia and Gal. We are on the Braveheart. Right now, you're 40 minutes south. Is 52 minutes. 10 miles from and I expect until sometime on April. So I'm very pleased to, as you all know already, the first was quite a flying success. We were QRV 15 hours landing. That meant the entire camp erected and the tents and radios on within 15 hours. We were on there for 20 days total. We made a total of 75,000 QSOs on all bands, and one in particular, top band, 160, we made 3,200 QSOs. We're very proud of that. Now, high bands, as you know the statistics, there was much more on TW. Reason was we could not hear sideband signals clearly, and so when we couldn't hear well, we went to CW so that we could continue working the stations. Scientifically, we fulfilled most of the goals. We got collected specimens from 3 major places, so a lot of good documentation, and a number of other activities, including we had 4 Skype conferences with school classes back home in the U.S. and also one in the Ukraine. When it came to be time to end, we struck camp, packed, and carried everything out onto the break part in 9 hours. It was quite an amazing feat to get off the island, and just in time because a storm was coming in. And if we had been delayed another day, it would have made things very much more difficult. So all of these details, I think, are being presented here by Rich. Thank you, Rich, for presenting those. And we would like to express our thanks, first of all, to the IPFC program organizers for giving us the chance to present the project to you, even though we wish we were there with you. But thank you for that. We want to thank Rich's Diablo DXers and the whole support group, handling tickets and piloting and so many other aspects of the outreach, so that the deserving out there would know what we were doing, and we hope to go along on the adventure with us. Of course, we want to thank the Northern California DX Foundation for the principal grant and significant financial support, as well as more than 1,000 individual DXers, a lot of you in the room there who have made donations. Made the project financially successful, and we believe because of that technically successful. So that's wishes from all of us here, and I'm going to turn it back to Rich. Thanks, Rich, for the opportunity. Thanks, everybody. We'll look forward to seeing you when we can.
Well, thank you very much, Bob. We really appreciate it. Okay, 73, Bob. We'll see you soon, and we hope the wind is at your back and you have calm seas the rest of the way.
Yeah, thanks very much. We'll talk. Yeah.
All right, 73. Okay, that worked. Okay. All right, onward. Here we go. So, yes, that was quite exciting and interesting. We've done a number of things that I think are fairly new for DXpedition, and it was a lot of fun doing. We've had some new interesting technology on board, and I'll talk about that in a second. So some of the things that we had, and you might remember, I'll just list real quick some of the innovations that we've done. DXA, Pete, W6OP, could you stand up? Here's the developer of W6OP. We also have Mike KJ4Z, who actually brought you instant logbook of the world in Club Log within minutes after making your QSO. Mike, could you stand up? So we also, we had all of the Diablo DXers help me with the networking of the satellite terminals and the network and networking laptops and whatnot. We're on W5KUB. If you hadn't seen it, it's kind of interesting. So we did live video interviews from Heard Island, so that was kind of cool. We also, we had a science project with NOAA and HUI, which are National Oceanographic Administration and Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, where we actually deployed buoys for them that actually talk to the satellite and send telemetric data back to to basically their database systems, and then they display where these buoys are floating around all over the world, and they send all different kinds of scientific, interesting data back. So that was kind of cool. I thought that was one of my favorite science aspects of the project. So again, like I said, we were fully funded before the team left, which was quite a feat for being a polar expedition. I will say, a year ago I presented what our plan was on fundraising in the DX University. Thank Wayne, thank you very much. I presented that and I actually followed that plan exactly, and I was actually somewhat surprised that it all worked out almost perfectly. Now, part of the reason why we were able to hit our budget is because when we went to some sponsors, we told them, we did not tell them we were a ham radio D-expedition. We told them we were a science expedition. And that garnered about $75,000 worth of gear. Both the tents, you saw the tents, that could withstand 75 miles an hour wind and torrential downpour. Not too much snow. Ironically, not much snow at all. I was very surprised about that. But anyway, the tents had heaters, they had flooring, very, very excellent. There's actually a ham from Southern California, and I'm sorry I forget his call. He invented those air beam tents. So I found that out, and I think that's super. What's his call? Gulf Japan Bravo. Whiskey 6 Gulf Japan Bravo. So we have a ham that designed those things. I didn't know that. And we basically got those HDT tents from HDT Global, which is in, I think, well, they're outside of Washington, D.C. and in Virginia. Or actually, they're in Solon, Ohio, but they also have a big presence in Virginia. And, the other thing is we got full sponsorship on Inmarsat. We got 4 top-of-the-line BGAN terminals, and that was all gratis. And all the airtime was 100% sponsored. So that was because of the science part of this expedition. A couple other things, we used the ticketing system to do what was normally called a pilot system, but this was way more than piloting. Let me explain. We actually handled support tickets instead of just having people getting inundated with emails. It brought all the tickets in one place, and we had 10 of us working these tickets. Now, I think the most impressive thing was our QSL manager was fixing busted calls every day during the D-expedition, and he finished them as the guys got on the boat. And there may be a few stragglers left, but think about that. That's a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah.
Get them while they're hot. If it's a busted call, get it fixed right away. And our whole thing was we wanted to do the most for the most. That doesn't mean we made everyone happy, but we actually handled over 2,300 support tickets, if you can believe that or not. Okay, we had the video chat, and obviously you just heard that Bob calling in on Iridium. We also have done voice hookups and links while they were in transit. And so there's DXA in the upper left-hand corner. On the upper right-hand corner is Bill AE0EE, who, when he was doing his video link with Tom, W5KUB. In the lower left-hand corner is Freshdesk. It's both a web app and a mobile app. I was actually handling tickets while I was commuting to work on BART every day. So I was actually answering a bunch of your tickets while I was going to work. We also did something, Mike KJ4Z, who stood up, was recently, had a highlight in the ARRL web. He actually made 41 QSOs from Palo Alto with the transmitter being remotely controlled. That was on Heard Island, and that was in conjunction with Elecraft. That was just a little demo, a little science experiment we did in conjunction with Elecraft, and thank you, Eric, and the staff, Eric's staff, who basically helped us put that together. And then in the lower right-hand corner, we have one of the Bucky Badger's finest from Wisconsin, Adam K2ARB, and he was instrumental in working on the buoys. And also, he really kicked butt on QSOs. I was really happy to see how high he was in his QSO count. There's Dave WJ20 on the left. You know, Herd Island was number 5 in the top 10. We sure hope that it'll be knocked out of the top 10 now. And then there's Hans Peter HB9BXE to the upper right, who's basically putting up an antenna and a couple smaller pictures of just the camp and antennas. Here's Bob coming back from near where the Braveheart was, and some of the DXpedition goals were all the goals that are really take a lot of work: organize a project, raise the funds, build the team, find transportation, get the permit to land. That was interesting. That took 200 pages of document to get permission to land on Herd Island. Not to mention, we had to fumigate everything in South Africa and Cape Town, and it was so much work, we actually hired Orkin to do it. But we had to get our permit. We wouldn't be allowed to get on the boat and go if all that stuff wasn't fumigated, and every little seed was picked out of Velcro on the tents, believe it or not. So anyway, but that's what you have to do. We did bring a number of new DXpeditioners into a DXpedition, and I'm so proud of what they did. They were amazing, actually. So here they are in Cape Town getting ready to leave. Some of these pictures you've seen. I just want to point out one person, and he's just to the left of Bob, and that's Paul, ZS1S. Now, when you send a container to Cape Town and you want it to go through customs, and you then need to have it locked up in a bonded warehouse so that it's not just hanging out on the dock, you need somebody who can actually coordinate that. And Paul did all of that for us. And actually, we want to thank Bob K4UEE for hooking us up with Paul. That was really critical. I mean, can you imagine something going wrong with the container and not getting on the Braveheart for some reason? Well, people like Paul helped us through that. To the left of Paul is Peter, who was our agent, who actually handled all the business end of the transactions we needed to do. But I just hope you understand that, there's a lot of detailed stuff you have to do to make these things happen. I mean, actually, way more than I ever expected. It was an eye-opener. Here's life on the Braveheart. This is what they're seeing right now. This is what they saw on the way down. And most of these pictures are on the website, but I just thought I'd show you, there's Vadim, the third over from the left, and then Gavin next to him. And, life aboard the Braveheart, they actually really, really enjoy it. They said the food has been really great, the accommodations are fine, and I think they've actually really enjoyed very much the Braveheart crew and the voyage as much as you can. Even maybe not so much the last bunch of days when they were hunkered down in their bunks with well, you're eating, so I'll stop. Okay, here's Adam, and he's deploying a buoy, and then one of the crew members of the Braveheart, I'm sorry I forget his name, but they're deploying buoys, and then the Woods Hole Institute and NOAA actually are already starting to chart where the buoys are. So on the right-hand side, you can actually see where the buoys have been traveling already. They're already sending data, so I think this is, being a database guy for 35 years, I think this is really cool. Here's some live video classroom chats. I'll just point out a few things. That's Jim N6TQ from Tiburon. And boy, Ironman on 30 meters, believe me. Most likely you worked either Jim or maybe Ken NG2H, but Jim seemed to live on 30 meters. Quite amazing. And his son actually goes to school. In the middle picture in the bottom row there, that's his son pointing out a picture of the penguins that was sent to them from Herd Island. So there was some live video hookups with schools, and there's the Ukrainian school in the upper center there. So there was this, good, serious school outreach, and I thought that went very, very well. So here's their arrival. People ask, well, how in the world do you get an ATV off of one of those Zodiac, well, they're not exactly Zodiacs, but a Zodiac-like boat? Well, the Braveheart crew can do anything. And I know the VP8 team surely proved the Braveheart's worth in scrambling up those rocks. Here, there were some days where there were breaking waves, but actually our team was lucky that Atlas Cove is fairly calm. So we didn't have to scramble up rocks like the VPA team did. But boy, when I saw the videos, what they had to do, that was amazing. And it was possible because of this Braveheart crew, just amazing group of people. And there's a wonderful welcoming committee. I just love these penguins. Okay, this is an old NRA ruin. So the first people who sort of colonized the island. You know, Heard Island actually at one time was a U.S. possession for a little while. It ended up, after changing hands a few times, with Australia. And they did have 14 men who went to Heard Island. They set up a camp in, I thought it was in the 40s. I'm sorry, I can't remember the exact date, but they were there for quite a while. They endured some really, really bad weather, and this was the last bit of ruins from their camp. This is Big Ben, or Mawson Peak, and it's actually venting. It is an active volcano. And here's the camp setup, setting up the HDT tents. On the left are the tents. On the right in the upper hand corner is sort of the lava. They were kind of on a bit of a lava bluff, and it was a good choice because when they had torrential rains, they didn't have to worry about getting soaked. And then in the lower right, that's the flooring. So the HDT tents have flooring. Okay, some more pictures of setting up the tents and what it looked like before they had all their gear. And in the lower right-hand corner, a little galley for taking food that came off the Braveheart each day, and then they could use a microwave to heat it up if somebody, say, was too busy to eat and was on the radio. But warm food could be had, and a little wash area, and quite nice. And the curious penguins, again, just, making sure that the camp was set up right, and just some more pictures of the tents. On the left-hand side of the tent, this little tent complex, was where they had the radio operations and the IT stuff. On the right hand was a dormitory, and there was a walkway that also had a floor with a sort of little, tent sort of hallway that went between the two. And not only that, on the right-hand side, so there's more pictures of the tent and some generators and some fuel and water and whatnot. And on the right-hand side, here's an interesting picture of a diesel heater. So these tents were heated. Now, it wasn't luxurious. They didn't have the heat cranked up high, but it was in the 50s instead of being in the 20s or 30s, so, especially at night. Okay, just more pictures with more of the accoutrements of doing the expedition. Now, the Braveheart crew actually does a really interesting thing. They put generators inside of these plastic containers, and that gives them a little shelter, which is quite nice. The generators actually worked flawlessly. I didn't hear of any problems with those. And this was their transport system, which was an ATV that they purchased used in South Africa. And thanks to Paul ZS1S, who hooked us up with a fellow who owned a company that sold used Polaris ATVs. And then there's a little cart that they loaded everything up on. I think they were about a half a mile away from, between a quarter of a mile and a half, almost a half mile away from where the boat left off the supplies. So it was a bit of a trek. And here's the antenna plan, and here's the antennas starting up. So we'll just take a little tour of the antennas. And there's a Force 12 Yagi that they used on the high bands. And there's Carlos NP4IW and Jim N6 on the right, and Jim N6TQ, and Arliss W7XU putting up the Force 12 Yagi. And on the left, there's Dave, the radio team leader, K3EL, and I believe that's an 80-meter vertical that he's putting up. There's Dave, WJ20, giving the high five, sort of, with the flag on the Yagi. And then a couple pictures of the four squares. I particularly like the one on the right. To me, that's a classic. It shows either a 30 or 40 meter four square with a 160 meter antenna in the back, and with the flooding of that area giving a nice saltwater plain. Luckily, it didn't go so high that it actually shorted out the coax connection. I think they had it just high enough that it never got inundated with water. Just some more, there's the 160 meter antenna on the left, and more of the four squares. I'm a big fan of four squares. And now I'm just going to go through a number of the operating positions, just so you can see what it looked like to be an operator on the tent, in the tent at VK0EK. So there's Vadim and Dave, and they were the low band champs. So how many worked VK0EK on 160? How about on 80 meters? Okay, looks like we had a pretty darn good low band representation here. I know their 160 numbers were actually quite good. So that's excellent. So anyway, these guys were the sort of Iron Men of the low band. Now this is what the BGAN terminals look like, and I had never seen a BGAN before this project, so I was very nervous. I was assigned to set these up and network the laptops, and I was scared. I thought, oh my God, I've never done this before. I've networked some computers, but nothing like this. Luckily, they sent us the Explorer 710s, which were so cool because what I did was I said, you know what, I'm not going to wire up anything. I'm not going to do any subnet masking, yada, 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 as much as I could avoid it because I didn't know how to do it. I did have Mike and Daniel to help me, but we all decided to keep it simple. What these things do is they actually create a wireless hotspot. So anyone on the team could use their mobile phone or their laptop and actually get on the internet. And one of these was always dedicated to DXA, and then the other ones were used for personal use. So honestly, I was a little bit taken aback when I thought, hey, they're not sending me any pictures or content. Why are they not sending me anything? Well, I went out on Facebook, and there's 3 of the team members posting away. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I gotta go to Facebook to get my content? Anyway, then I realized, hey, that's actually pretty cool. I'm okay with that. This is Bill, AE0EE, and he's looking at a Google chat window. I'm sure I was talking to him at the time, and he's looking a little bit concerned because I was probably asking him, hey, you have this little box in DXA where you can tell DXers what you're doing. Please start typing in that. In the beginning, they weren't. I said, wait a minute, that's what that's for. You got to tell the world what's going on. DXA, you obviously know what DXA looked like as far as making your QSO, but I thought it became even more valuable when, instead of trying to tell me, an erstwhile pilot type, to start posting stuff on the web, I thought, hey, you guys have this box that Pete, W60P, put up, and then they started describing and telling people what they're doing and what the status is. And I actually just started getting the status off DXA to post on the blog, so they were ahead of me then. That was great. Just a superb person to work with. Now, he was a Navy captain on nuclear submarines, and this guy he's just amazing. He had the contacts, so having worked for the Navy and living in Virginia, he had several contacts, like with HDT and Inmarsat, and I was on the team with him to basically talk and give our requirements, and it was just a joy working with Ken. And there he is using a key that I donated to the D-Expedition, maybe making my 30-meter QSO with me with my own key, so that's kind of cool. And there's Carlos, MP4IW, and he'd been on several different D-Expeditions before, both Cordell and other ones like 3Y0X and other D-Expeditions. Here's Alan, VK6EQ, and he also holds the call sign VK0LD. He actually, from Australia, he understands the Australian rules, and believe me, he's a walking rule book, and we had to conform to the rules. He made sure we did it, and it was great too, because we had a lot of questions. Well, how do you do this and how do you do that? And with the Australian rules, and he was great. He, like I say, he was like a rule book, and the reason why is because he has overwintered down in Macquarie quite a bit. And some of you, does anyone here remember Kevin the Penguinator? Okay. So basically, when he was on Macquarie, he had some interesting ways of dealing with different types of operators, and the threat was that Kevin the Penguinator would take care of you if you didn't behave in the pileups. There's the 30-meter Ironman Jim. So one of the things I did was build a patch panel. There was a lot of different things that I did. So there was a patch panel, and on the right was the sleeping quarters, what it looked like at night, and then in the lower left there's operating, and it looks like they were having a good time, and Dave was changing some cables on the patch panel, and they had that nice flooring there, so that was quite cool. There's a friend you don't want to get too close to. And here's Gavin. Those the superb penguin pictures that you saw. I think Gavin took those. He's a superb photographer. So this is one of the glaciers coming down off the mountain. This is called Kerguelen cabbage. I actually found out it's actually edible, but not very tasty. More of man's best friend on Herd Island.
On the D expedition.
Yeah, it would be.
Another view of the glacier. And this just shows the volcanic soil, and so just reminds you that this is a volcano. So they had volcanic ash blowing around and whatnot. They did say that the tents did really well and kept out. One of the things we worried about was we had heard that the volcanic ash blows around an awful lot, so one of the decisions we made was to actually use SSD drives in the laptops instead of moving disks, just so that maybe the laptop wouldn't, pull in some volcanic ash and ruin a disk drive. I don't know if that was actually needed in the end, probably not, but anyway, that's the story about volcanic ash. Okay, so now another science project was to collect specimens for, as I understand it, up to 9 universities, many of them in Australia, and then some are actually back here in the US. So, there's Herd Island is a pristine island. It actually has not been visited many times at all. It's one of the very few islands in the world that has no introduced species. Now, while the glaciers and whatnot are melting, they're exposing some life forms that actually may not have even been sort of awake for many, many years. There's sort of this Rip Van Winkle kind of character called a tardigrade, and it can be basically asleep or frozen for 100 years and then wake up with a drop of water once it becomes unfrozen. You may have actually heard about some very interesting things they're finding in Antarctica because of this, and so Herd Island, not much research has been done. So one of many people that they're working with is a PhD candidate from the University of Tasmania named Jodie Fox. And basically, they were collecting some samples for her and for other people. And I must say that when we were working with the AAD, they were very impressed with the science plan. So yet again, the science plan helped us get the funding that made it possible to go in the end. And the science actually also gave us certainly great PR with the AAD. I mean, they were very pleased with the plan that we had for that. Now, yes, there's a controversy about spit. I'm not going to belabor the point, but they actually did go to Stevenson Lagoon. They tried to go over. They actually went over not with radio operators because they had been told pretty much by Matt Jolly that the landing would be rough. So what they did was they did go over to check out to see if there was any possibility to bring people over to spit, and Matt Jolly said, you know what, I'm gonna check this out with you, but I don't really know if this is a good idea. Sure enough, they were there for 2 hours, and they had to hightail it and get out of there because it was far too dangerous. So I was really pleased that they actually didn't take any radio operators, because the first day they couldn't even do this. And so they would have wasted probably 2 to 3 days of a radio operator's time to go over there. And I certainly wish they could have activated it, but that lagoon now is a high lake, and there's not much left going on at Spit either, and it's become very, very dangerous to land there. So it's actually changed dramatically since 1997. It looks just completely different than it did. So that was something we were worried about, and the worry came true. And here's a turn. Now here's Arliss. Arliss was on the VP8 team, so he went to South Sandwich and South Georgia, and then yes, he actually went to Cape Town and got on the boat, and now is gone to Herd Island. Can you imagine that? If he writes a book, I definitely want to buy it. I sure hope he writes a book, because that's got to be an amazing story to tell. And a really great guy, and he was the team doctor, and superb op. He seemed to be on the air all the time. And here's Adam with friends, K2ARB, a great operator, and he's actually spent a lot of time in Antarctica as well. In fact, he knew Alan, VK0EK, because they had both actually worked together and on overwintering in Antarctica or Macquarie, basically polar places. Rock hopper penguins hopping up the rocks. One of Gavin's photos, some of my favorites, his penguin pictures, just love them. Now, an interesting thing. So I did a lot of the propagation. I actually was working with two good friends of mine, Stu, K6TU, and also Dean, N6BV, and we exchanged a lot of emails, and they gave us quite a bit of very valuable information. Now, of course, we all know that, like, you don't live and die, you live or die by watching the cluster. The same thing with propagation predictions. They're a good guideline, but please don't take them as the gospel truth, because one thing I hadn't taken in consideration was how close they were to the aurora australis, or the South Pole, polar aurora. It was so strong on many days that at night they went out and the sky was green. And here's a picture of, I don't know if you can really see it, but anyway, you can see the green. It basically, the sky was green, and when that happened, the bands were almost wiped out. They could hardly hear anything. And I looked online, and I'll show you what it looked like, and I'll show you why. This was so far over Herd Island, it was almost all the way to Kerguelen. Check this out. So on the left there's the auroral donut. That's something we'd only wish Homer Simpson would have taken away. But the Italians actually sent me kind of a funny little cartoon to the right, because as they were leaving, all of a sudden conditions got a lot better. The sunspot number went from 11 to 40 something again, and the SFI went back over 100. But one other thing that happened was the auroral donut, or the auroral oval, got so much stronger that it went from just green to that yellow. So even if they stayed longer, which they couldn't anyway, they had to hightail it out of there, conditions just weren't the best. And as they were breaking down, then it started to snow. Not too much, but it did. And then there's a curious penguin trying to help Dave, K3EL, and Bill, AE0EE, take down the antenna. So very helpful, very friendly friends there. Now I'm just going to put up one last slide that actually shows you the logos. I'll show you the sponsors and whatnot one last time, and just want to thank everyone for indulging, and I hope you enjoyed this. Okay, thank you, and good evening.
Woohoo!
Thanks so much, Rich. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time we've done the expedition presentation before the expedition got home, while they were still traveling. So that's a first, therefore, that tonight. All right, we're going to get on with some other business here. I apologize, I left one silent key off here earlier.